teach you how to stock, I can teach you how to do a lot of things, but I can't teach attitude, all right? So I tell people, hire the right person with the right attitude, and you can train them to do anything, okay? That dishwasher, at 14 years old, somebody trained, and I became a really good dishwasher, right? And so hire the guy with the best attitude and train him. When you give them the power, the development that they need, they're gonna do way more than you ever thought they would do, okay? Now we get into this world where now you have a team, okay? You have a team, you're like, all right, these guys do really good, these guys don't do really good. How do I keep these guys doing really well, and how do I elevate these, okay? I think that's probably one of the most difficult things for a leader, for a manager to do, okay? In my world, I deal with 12 district managers who leads 200 store managers. And so I have buckets of, hey, these guys are doing really well, these guys aren't. Typically what happens is people that are doing really well, we don't do anything with them. We're like, hey, they're doing good, leave them, they're good. They're gonna keep doing good, okay? What typically happens to those guys after a year, 2 years? They're like, hey, no one's noticing me, not really doing anything, not really growing, so they end up leaving, right? Or they end up doing, or even worse, they end up stepping back and saying, I don't need to do this anymore because no one's recognized me and I'm not going anywhere anyways, right? So those top performers, you actually have to give them stretch assignments. You have to recognize them, but really if they're the top performers, they don't care to have like the public recognition because they're like, they have a bigger mission. For those guys, it's how do I teach you more? How do I get you to like help your peers that are struggling and kind of like develop that peer mentorship already? And so what I've learned is my top performers, I pair them with like my bottom performers. And I make them have like touch bases because we all know if I don't know something, I'm probably not gonna go to my boss. I'll probably go to a peer before I go to my boss, right? And so I've learned that if you pair those two up, that top performer now is able to influence that bottom performer, and that top performer feels like they're contributing a lot more than just what they do every single day. That's that internal reward that allows them to do more and allows them to be valued way more than anything that we could ever do. So that's something I've learned with like good performing and then not good performing folks. I think one of the things that teams forget to do is how to establish what winning looks like. What does good look like in your business, in your field, in your restaurant, in your whatever field you're in? We come in, we work really hard, and at the end of the day, everyone's exhausted, but we don't know if we won or not. And so I think what we have to do is we have to establish clear, whether it be expectations or clear metrics that allow us to say, hey, we won today, or man, we didn't win today. And if you're on a high-performing team, when you don't win, what are you gonna do the next day? You're gonna come back in, you're gonna do harder, right? If you didn't win the championship this year, you're gonna come back next year, and you're gonna fight harder, you're gonna play harder. So when you don't have metrics that determine who wins and who loses, I think people just quit playing. Alex is in the back there. Alex runs our Hmong basketball association here. Like he knows all about like setting goals and playing for real, like playing for points. Because imagine if two teams are out there playing and we're not keeping score. How hard are they playing? Not real hard, right? They're just gonna jog up and down the court. But when they're actually playing for a championship, playing for a prize, they're gonna give it their all, right? So in any field that you're in, I think we can apply what clear winning looks like and again, what clear losing looks like. Because we have to know that either we were successful today or we were not successful today, okay? And then just a couple things about like team development. We have to get to know our team members. Oftentimes, as a leader, every time I take over a new job, my first probably 30 days is who are you, who are your kids, what makes your world go round, okay? We have to get to know people on a personal level, or they will never follow us. Okay? So you got to have like little tricks where you can remember how, like, Susie's doing. And then when you go back in, you have to ask them, hey, I noticed, Hannah, had a game last week. Did they win? Like, that's important to people, right? Like, for all of us. When somebody asks me about my family, my grandkids, my kids, when I was working with Petco, we got a dog just because I worked for Petco, right? Because everyone was like, hey, Koo, do you have a dog? I was like, no. But you work for a dog company. I'm like, no, we don't have a dog. So my daughter wanted a dog, so we got a dog for a little bit. And but when you ask people about what matters to them, now you're not that like boss. You're actually somebody who has a genuine interest in who they are. Okay? And so make mental notes. If you're like me and you forget a lot, like I write everything down. I take pictures. But you have to do something that triggers you to remember what that person likes and what they do. Because if not, you're always gonna be that boss that everyone's like, here comes the boss, everybody hide. Okay? We all know, like when that boss comes in and you don't really like want to talk to them, all of a sudden everyone disappears. Okay? So those are a few little things around like team development. Okay? All right, I think I'm doing okay on time here. All right, so we're going to talk about leading through change. So change, like I said earlier, is inevitable. There is only one thing that's constant in life, and that's change. So being in retail and leadership for almost 30 years here, the retail world, the landscape has changed tremendously. We all, like, who would have thought Amazon would be as big as they are now? At one point, Walmart had the opportunity to buy Amazon, and at that time, the board, they didn't do it, right? And so now they're like, darn, we should have made that decision. But leadership has changed through the years. I remember my early days of leadership. My district managers would come in, and maybe in an hourly, they'd come in, and I remember seeing it. Like they'd come in and just throw stuff on the ground, and they would want you to know that they were in charge, all right? I told one of my guys today, try that today. Like that would not work today, okay? So your leadership has to change and adapt to how the culture is changing. Because if not, you're gonna be stuck in 1999 trying to lead folks that are in the 2025s, leading folks like my kids that, to them, if I'm talking about, stuff that happened 30 years ago, it's irrelevant to them, okay? When I walk in the stores, I use tools that are relevant to today's world. I don't show up with paper. I like paper, okay? I don't really show up with paper anymore, okay? If I don't show up with the tools that can relate to the generations now, it won't be relevant to them, okay? I think the next thing about leading through change is, as a leader, you have to be the first person to accept that change. And I think for me, I learned that lesson early on. Like I said, when I ran my first store, okay? So again, I'm 29 years old. I walk into the store and man, it was a disaster, okay? I'm trying to tell people what to do. They're like, dude, you're a kid, you don't know what you're doing. And so I had to learn to reevaluate myself, okay? But leading through change, if I don't buy into the change, I don't accept that it's changing, how are we ever gonna lead a group of people to buy into that change? If I'm the first person that says, hey, listen, this program, it's gonna only last for a little bit, they'll go back to how it used to be. Guess what happens? My whole team says, we'll just wait this out, right? And so I have to be the first one to understand what the changes are, how to implement it into our work life, into how we lead people, and then I have to be the biggest cheerleader, okay? Being a leader is all about being a cheerleader, okay? You are there every single day to make sure that the people that directly work for you feel like you are 100% in alignment with whatever the changes are, okay? Because if not, it's just gonna be another thing that changes. And they're gonna be like, in 6 months, it'll go back to what it was if we don't implement this change, okay? So as a leader, your job is to firstly embrace the change yourself. And then I think what you have to do as a leader is recognize that, again, change is hard, and everybody deals with it differently. Sometimes, like for me, if you tell me something's changing, you kind of walk me through it. For me, I'm easy. I'm like, all right, got it. We're going. We're moving forward. For somebody else, it may be like, oh man, it doesn't feel good. We've always done it this way. We've done it for 30 years. Why are you changing it? It doesn't feel comfortable. You have to help me, and you have to help that person learn how to change, okay? So here's a simple exercise I want you guys to do tonight. If you are wearing a watch, okay? You're wearing a watch. Take it off and put it on the other hand. Okay? Just take it off, put it on the other hand. And I'm gonna time you guys for a minute. Okay? So yeah, put it on the other hand. All right, so minute's gonna start, okay? So it's gonna be a minute of you wearing your watch on the other hand. Okay, that was 10 seconds. How's it feel? Anybody want to shout out? Just how's it feel having your watch on the other hand? It feels bad, right? Okay? It's not normal, okay? All right, that's 20 seconds. How's it feel? Yeah, it's heavy. Doesn't feel right at all, okay? All right, what else? Anybody else feel anything? Okay? All right, it's 30 seconds. How's it feeling now? Still feels kind of awkward. Yeah, still feels awkward. You're like, ugh, I can't get used to it, okay? All right, we are almost at a minute. Okay, we're at a minute, okay? That change, that small little change, felt so uncomfortable. I know when I did it, I was like, oh, how do you do this? How do you wear your watch on the other side, right? And so we have to realize that that is what people go through every single time that we implement change in their lives, okay? You may not see it in their faces, but in their like soul, in their guts, it doesn't feel right. Okay? You guys can put it on your normal hand now, your watches. You can put it on your regular hand now. I know you guys are like dying to do that. Yeah, so just you have to recognize that change is hard because it doesn't feel right. That initial shock, like I said, when I first did that initial shock was like, ooh, get it off me. I don't like this. Okay? So your people, like when you lead through change, they're gonna do that. I'm like, ooh, I don't like this. Get it off me. Okay? But what a good leader does is they go in there and they assure them, hey, listen, it's okay. It's okay that you don't like it, but we're gonna get through this together. Look, I'm gonna do it too. I'm gonna put my watch on this hand as well, right? And then you show them that you're not only telling them to do it, but you're actually gonna do it with them. And it goes back to that servant leadership. Okay, there's moments where you go back in and you help them through this. And so you actually come out, and at the end of it, you're like, oh man, okay. We're both in it together now. It doesn't feel so bad, right? And then you two turns into 3, into 4, into 5, and all of a sudden, like the entire team's doing it, and it starts to feel normal again, okay? And so leading through change is something that I think, again, whatever industry you're in, whatever role you have in an organization, change is inevitable, and we all have to embrace it, but no one likes it, okay? So that's a little bit about leadership, okay? I have been blessed with, over almost 30 years of doing this. And the one thing I learned every single day is I have to show up and want to learn something every single day. If not, I become complacent. So I read books, I read excerpts from books, okay? I listen to podcasts. I listen to a lot of TED Talks, that kind of stuff, right? It allows me to really just keep my mind going so that I don't become complacent. But I think what we have to realize is leadership is about just people. At the end of the day, I may have moved from company to company to company, but my job remains the same. I lead people every single day. That doesn't change. I just have to go in and have people do what the company wants them to do. And the better I am at doing that, the more effective I am. I'm not putting a service out there. I lead people. I deal with people every single day. And as leaders, that's all you do. You're not the one out in the kitchen cooking. Sometimes you are, but a lot of times, hopefully you're not the one cooking, right? You're not the one always doing the things. You're leading the people that are doing the job. And if you don't realize how much of an impact you make a huge difference. Okay, so that's what I want to leave you guys with tonight. We make a difference in the people that we lead. Whether they have a good conversation around the kitchen table about us or have a poor conversation around the kitchen table is determined by us. Okay? So I want to leave you guys with that. And then I want to give a few moments, Lou, if you don't mind, just for some takeaways from the group here. Just want to hear what you take away from this. And then just open it up for some Q&A. We've got a little bit of time, so I would love to answer any questions that you have, whether it's about leadership or whatever. Okay, so start off with takeaways. I'd love to hear some takeaways. I'll call you out. All right.
I'll go first.
Okay.
I like the analogy with the board. How the leader
Okay.
is up there.
Yep.
They're down there.
Yep.
The leader has to be up there to oversee everything.
Yep.
They also have to trust the leader being up there.
Yep.
To guide them where.
Absolutely. Yep. And you said the word trust. Those guys on the ground have to trust that you're going to make the right call, or else they're not going to let you stay up there much longer, right? Yeah. So really good one. Okay. All right, right here.
Could you explain a little bit more about what you were doing to be seen, to be given the promotions that you had?
Yeah. Okay. So what I did, show up. You have to, like, if they say, hey, in my world, okay, so in my world, I worked with Walmart stores at that time. We all know, like, there's some stores that are, like, really broken. So if they say, hey, guys, we need a team of, like, 10 people to go help this store clean up. Me, I'll go. Oh, but it's working overnight. I got it, I'll go. Right, like, so always raise your hand to do stretch assignments so that people know that you're dedicated. I think that's the first thing. And the second thing is, once you do that though, don't always be the guy that like goes in and just has the really hard, good work ethic. Like we all know, like we have good work ethic. But I think what often happens is we rely on our work ethic to get us where we need to be, and it's not always that. Okay, so when I look at like how to get promoted, I always look at it like a pie chart. Okay, so I kind of divide it into three, and I can't remember who I stole this from, but it's not my idea. But the three pie chart, the first piece of the pie is P, so for your performance. So you have to be doing a good job. You're not gonna get promoted if you don't do a good job. The next one is an I, for your image, okay? You have to look the part. If you wanna be a manager, you have to be a leader, you have to look like a leader, you have to look like a manager. In the world that we live in, quite honestly, guys, in my world, like this might sound really bad, but I had to look like a white guy, okay? Like I have to dress like a white guy. I have to show up, okay? I love Jacob to death, okay? So you have to look the part, okay? And then the final piece of the pie is E, exposure. You have to have exposure. You could be the best looking, hardest working person, but if that person who's gonna do the promoting don't know who you are, you're never gonna get it. So that the whole pie, for me, is really important because you have to have all aspects of those at every single time to get those promotions. So hopefully that answers your question.
So, how did you working in Walmart and then Lowe's saw you?
Yep, okay. Yeah, so network, okay? Networking is important because, again, we're here for networking. So obviously, again, you have to be doing a really good job. You have to have the image and exposure. Somebody has to say, hey, here, your resume, what does it look like on paper? But then, like the retail world is actually a really small world. There's people that know me, there's people that know of me, and so those people have to vouch for you and say, hey, yeah, like we want that guy on our team. If not, you become a number on the paper, right? You just become another resume. And so I was telling Rick, like he works at a store in Morganton. I know like 90% of his store management team. Like at one time, like probably 100% of them work for me directly. And so if one of them says, hey, this guy named Rick wants to get like promoted in our world, I'm like, yeah, I know him, right? I can vouch for him, right? So it's about like having your stuff together, but about having a big network that helps you get that as well. So, okay? Yes?
This will be a little bit more like on the personal side.
Okay.
With all those days working and all that, traveling, if you do travel still, how do you approach your wife? Or your spouse?
Yeah,
How
okay.
do you approach that?
Yeah, I'm fortunate. My wife grew up with me like doing this, okay? So she saw like the early days of like that hunger of wanting more, right? And so she's always been bought in on us making sure like I can do that stuff. Now, the thing I'll tell you is if you're always doing that and then you come home and you're a jerk to your wife, that ain't gonna work, okay? So when you are home and when you are there, you have to be present, okay? My wife's number one complaint about me is you're not present, okay? So on the table there, I have two phones. One's my personal phone, one's my work phone, okay? I'm probably like all of you guys, like we're on our phones too much, okay? So she'll tell me, hey, listen, put your phone away. I've learned recently to leave my work phone home when I go on vacation, okay? Like pretty recently. There was one vacation where we were on the plane to the Dominican and I'm on the phone working on the plane going to the Dominican on vacation. And I just had to learn, like I have to put that one down or else it's constant, okay? Your world will demand 100% of you. It will take 100% of you if you give it to them, okay? So yeah, so my wife and I, like I said, we always had this agreement, you know, we grew up in my retail world, so I was fortunate for that. And she got to see like the highs and the lows, and we get to celebrate where we were and where we are and where we used to be, you know. So, and then I think we always look back and, you know, I kid to my kids all the time, like when I first started at Walmart, I was making $4.45. I could pull up the old pay stub and look at it, and we could dream together and say, man, like, do you remember those days, right? So you can go back and kind of dream together, and that helps us, like, when I have to go out of town for a couple days, it's like, okay, listen, it's okay. We know you're coming, like, I know you're coming back home to me, and it'll be okay, so, okay? Yes?
So you spoke a little bit about hiring people with good attitude. On the flip side, when do you know when it's time to fire somebody?
Yeah, so ultimately to me, it's skill or will, okay? If you don't know how to do a job, I will bend over backwards to make sure you know how to do it. I'm gonna make sure you're supported the entire process. When you don't want to do the job, that's a whole different ballgame, okay? So you have to make that decision pretty quickly. I think oftentimes leaders fail to deal with the people who aren't performing, and then it impacts the entire team, right? So you have to say, hey, listen, like I've shown you, you've shown me, I know you can do it. Now at this point, you're choosing not to do it, and when you choose to not do what I know you can do, you have to do something else. And so actually right now, I have a guy that I have on a PIP, so performance improvement plan, right? And so this is how I know he's choosing not to do it, okay? So if you know a PIP, you get delivered this day, we cover it with you, there's a signature line, right? You have to sign it, give it back to me. The dude's like, I'm not signing it. I'm like, okay, well, I mean, at the end of the day, it's still delivered. I've covered it with you, here's the expectations. So we have a touch base. Hey, here's how you're doing. You're not meeting the expectations. I need you to sign it, deliver it back to me. Still refuse to sign it and deliver it back to me. So to me, that becomes his choice to not do what we need him to do. It's not he doesn't know. It's not he doesn't like have the resources. He's choosing to not do what we need him to do at that point. So to me, those difficult conversations and those decisions become really easy because if you're choosing to not do it, I can't help you. Okay? Yeah. So that's how I deal with it.
When it comes to managing, how do you change your management skills based on scale, right? From store to regional to director level.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are different ways of managing
Yeah.
and how you approach the team now.
Yeah.
How do you
Absolutely. To me, it's about this whole idea of like leading leaders. Okay, so when I'm in the store, I'm not leading leaders, I'm leading workers, right? So my level of management has to be a little bit more hands-on, a little bit more detailed, a little bit more kind of micromanaged, right? When you're leading leaders, you have to actually trust that that leader cares about the organization, cares about your business enough to actually want to do it. And then my job is to inspire them to do more, right? Recognize them when they're doing well, and then develop them when they're not, okay? And so if I micromanage my leaders, they're gonna be tired of me, right? They're gonna be like, dude, I'm doing my job. Now, if they're not doing their job, then I have to step in and do a little bit more. But if they're doing their job, the worst thing to a good leader is to have a boss who's a micromanager. Every day, hey, it's what are you doing today? Tomorrow, what are you doing tomorrow? If you're constantly following up on them, honestly, why do you even need them if you're going to do the job for them, right? So I've learned, like I said, to me, in my world, the further I get away from the store, the less micromanager I become, okay? Because I have to trust my leaders to do what they're doing. Okay. Yep, Stephen?
Kind of a personal question. Those of you who don't know, I'm related to Ku through marriage, so long history. Anybody want to connect with him, pay me.
Join the chamber.
So, how did you deal with it when relatives or friends, right, would say to you, it's just Walmart, you just pushing buggies. Walmart, Sila.
Yeah.
Right? How did you personally deal with it?
I love that because that happened numerous times, okay? More times than I can count. My wife will tell you, we've cried many times because of that, okay? So when I hear people now tell me, I'm just blah, 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 I always stop them. You are never just something, right? So I've always been like, you don't know, Stephen, those are like ingrained in my like soul. Number one, I use that as motivation. Number one, I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna show you, okay? And so I've always used those to empower me to do more, because like those naysayers, man, like they more often than not, they're not really invested in you. They're not gonna take the time to actually talk to you about why you're making a decision, about what other options there are. They just want to put you down because you're not following the path that they think is successful. And so I always use that as a motivating factor. And then, quite honestly, I go back to them, right? Like I'm kind of a, like that. And I go back to them. Hey, you remember 10 years ago, you told me that? I think I'm okay now, And so, that's probably bad of me, but I do, right? Because it motivates me to do more, okay? So, yeah, thank you.